That's impossible.
Let me tell you what I believe.
But your weakness is not your technique.
Yes! Yes!
Don't think you are. Know you are.
The Impossible Life podcast.
I mean, you're sitting on a winning lottery ticket. An idea that is fully formed, fully understood, that sticks.
This is the Impossible Life podcast because Nick and I are attempting to live impossible lives. What we know is that nothing is impossible. So instead of using impossible as an excuse to not try, we'll use the pursuit of impossible as an accelerant for greatness. If something's never been done before, that just means it's unexplored. If they tell you it's too hard, it's just waiting to be simplified. Impossible is a default label used by uncourageous people unwilling to take a risk. The real truth is this: the solution to any impossible task starts with this question. If I had to, what would it take?
Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man so intense, he's been described as the pesticide to unbelieving minds. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who identifies as the Lord's weed killer.
I like that one. I'll take that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, you're full of chemicals as well, so you know. I don't even know what that means, but it just seemed like the right thing. All right, G. Today, our shortcast tools and tactics, man. As always, it's a doozy. The path of transformation. We just got done doing our fitness challenge. We talked about discipline on our last episode and the must of discipline. We are both still walking around lean and mean. We have not turned to a life of pancakes and fast food. And so here we are, like the path of transformation. And it's kind of funny because I'm sat here doing this. If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you watch, I'm wearing the very first t-shirt Garrett and I ever made. It's got the old logo. It's the Impossible Life Fire Starter. We even put like a logo. It's got Fire Starter Experience on the back. I'm twisting around in case you hear my audio getting weird, to show all that to people who are watching. And we made this for our very first ice bath. And you talk about like a path of transformation and a path of growth. I've told this story before, so I won't belabor it, but we started off with great dreams. We bought 50 t-shirts at a reasonable price of like, I don't even know what it was, but it was a couple $100 all in. And we had a grand total of 12 people sign up for that first ice bath event, which was sobering. We did it like 4 months into our podcast, just figured, yeah, we've got a couple hundred followers. They'll all want to come to Dallas. Let's go. And I remember I was just like, man, should we even do this? And you said, faithful over little, ruler over much. And I was like, that was the only thing you said to me. And I was like, okay, we're just going to go full bore at this thing. And so fast forward like 3 more ice baths later, next year was 70. Year after that was 130. Year after that was last year was 150. We're getting ready to do it again this year. It's early October. Pretty soon we'll be announcing all that sort of stuff. And we're going to do the ice bath again on the 1st of January like we always do. I have no idea how many people will be there, but I can't wait because it's going to be amazing. And the point is like, if you would have said when we were doing that first ice bath, like, don't worry, like things are going to go all right, I would have had no idea. And we haven't shared our transformation pictures yet from the fitness, the lean challenge that we did, but we will shortly. And I think about that, like, I think about the picture of our ice bath and me wearing this, and you like, everybody wants a montage, right? Like you have this, like, you see this before and after, like people love this thing on Instagram, how it started, how it's going. And everybody's like, yeah. And like, we see those things and we get to see however many hours, thousands of hours, years of work, whatever, in one swipeable post that we can consume in a few seconds and go like, wow, good for you, high five. And we love a before and after picture. And what every single person that looks at those does subconsciously, and they don't know because it happens so fast, is they have a path of how the person went from how it started to how it's going. And they kind of have this mental map that they have. And they're like, yeah. And then what happens is most people quit when the path is not what they want. Because on the path of what you think the before to after picture looks like is a lot of things that you go like, okay, it might be tough, but like, I'll be great. And like, what you don't think is like, oh, you woke up and you felt awful. And, you didn't want to do that at all. And you literally hated every single thing that you did. And you had to sit there and convince yourself that what you were doing was still worth going. And, you had to go through all sorts of doubt and dark places that you would never share on Instagram. And it's like, okay, so that's what it actually looks like. So what we wanted to do is we want to get into the path of transformation, show you how to stir up belief, show you what the path actually looks like. And Garrett, this kind of kicked off for me. You said this to me early on. And like I say to people, say what you want about me. I've got a good mental highlighter for pulling things out that you say that I'm like, okay, I'm going to hang on to that. And I feel like I've had that for a lot of people in life. You said to me, you said, you don't have to be the person who has everything figured out. You have to be the type of person that could figure anything out.
And
Massive difference.
it's belief, and it's that statement really highlights where you put your beliefs. Right, beliefs are the things you know are true but can't prove. Join us in Mindset Mastery. Beliefs are also the things that you're willing to bet on. And in that context, being the person who has everything figured out, you're basically being the guy who says, well, I need to see the nails in his hands. I've got to see it for myself. I'll believe it when I see it. And if that's the way you want to live, you're not going to live very far. You're not going to accomplish very much. You have to be the type of person that could figure anything out. And that starts with the belief in yourself of saying, you know what? I don't know. I literally don't know what kind of monsters are out there in the dark. I don't know what challenges lie in front of me. I don't know how big the giants are going to be, but I know that I can face them. And that's where you put your trust, right? Of course, obviously, we put our trust in the Lord. That was David's mindset. That was David's thought process as he stepped out to face Goliath. He said, the Lord was with me when I faced lions and bears, so he'll be with me when I face this giant. But that wasn't just David saying, oh, I've prayed before, right? David had the courage, had the training and the preparation to face the lions and bears based upon that foundational belief he had in God, and then what he did with it afterwards. And you've got to have both. You can't just have like, oh, well, I just believe in God, but I don't do anything, right? And you also can't say, well, I trust in myself. I'm going to trust in me. Because as soon as you just put all your trust in yourself, the moment that it's not working for you, who you are is shattered. And so you have to have both this faith in God, while also the trust and the confidence that comes in yourself from you having put in the work, having done the preparation. And that's where you become the type of person that could figure anything out. So you're not afraid to face things. You know God has a plan, and you also know that you don't have to get ready because you've stayed ready.
Yeah, and I'll really capture that because I think a lot of people, I mean, you said obviously our trust is in the Lord, and I think everybody would be like, yeah, our trust is in the Lord. But I when you said that, my first question is I thought to myself, so I was like, yeah, but Garrett, is everybody's trust really in the Lord? Because I think and I'm glad you touched on your responsibility for preparation as well as the submission and the surrender and belief that God's got, that God's in control. Because I think for a lot of people, they'll look at the story of David and be like, yeah, well, it was easy for him because we know it worked out. Like, God was with him. Like, God wouldn't be with me to kill a bear. And like the natural question would be like, how much preparation have you done to fight a bear? Right. And like,
where's the story that David had of all the men that God had been with them and helped them kill the lions and bears? What story did David have?
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, because up until that point, there was no Benaiah. Benaiah was one of his mighty men. Like we as far as we know, there was not a lot to that. He had the story of the Israelites in the desert. They didn't fight lions that anywhere in there that we saw. And so that's a good point. But I wanted to highlight that because I think what will so often happen is people will be like, yeah, my trust in the Lord. But then as soon as it starts going the way they don't want, they start panicking and they want to try and fix it because what they really want is for God to bless their own plan rather than to just have a true submission of like, okay, Lord, like you're in control and I trust you. So I'm going to keep being faithful with what you've given me to do and know that even if it doesn't work out the way I want, you've got a plan. That's where you're actually trusting in the Lord. And that's where the rubber meets the road. So I just that's a really important point. And you have your favorite scripture here, G, when we start kicking in towards transformation.
So we're going to talk about the path of transformation. And this is a scripture that I talk about all the time at Mighty Men. I invite any of you men who've never been to Mighty Men, whether you live in the Dallas area or you live anywhere throughout the country, I invite you to come anytime. Come join us. Come be with us. But Romans chapter 12, this is one of my favorite scriptures on transformation. Paul says, I'm pleading with you. Offer your body as a living sacrifice. This is worship that is holy and pleasing to the Lord. Right? So it begins with the choice that you have to make. You have to choose to offer your body as a living sacrifice. That's you deciding. I'll just encapsulate verse 1 here so we can focus on verse 2. Verse 1 is saying, you've got to decide it's not all about you. Make your life not about you and put your way of living, put a flesh way of living, put a selfish way of living, put that on the altar. This is worship that's holy and pleasing to God. And I'll just, I want to highlight this point really, really quick as well. is that it says that to do that is worship that's holy and pleasing to the Lord. And I love this understanding of holiness. Holiness means to be used rightly or to be used in line with your design. It's like you being used correctly. And a good example of that is a hammer and a nail. The hammer is designed to strike a nail. That's what the hammer is made for. The hammer is not a multi-tool. It's not a utility player, right? Everyone carries a hammer. You can hit a lot of stuff with it, right? It's great. It's good for hitting things. But the hammer is designed to strike the nail. And that's what holiness is. When a hammer hits a nail, that's holiness. And for a man, when you decide that your life is not about you and you give up your way of doing things, your way of thinking, that is holiness. And that like a man, like a hammer, if a hammer has never struck a nail, that hammer will feel a massive lack of purpose, a massive lack of significance, because it's never done what it was made for. And if a man only lives his life pursuing his own things, pursuing his own thinking, just living a flesh way of living, you will feel like a hammer that's never hit a nail. Let's go on to verse 2. That's where I want to focus today. It says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and see God's will for your life, which is perfect and pleasing. And so really two parts here. First, there's the don't conform to this world. That's the transformation part. You've got to let God change your thinking. And that's so much of what we focus on here on this podcast. I want to help you think differently. I want to help you think the way that God wants you to think. That's where you're really going to see the massive change in your life. But that it is an ongoing process. It's not like, well, I've listened to every podcast. Right. I read the Bible from start to finish. Yeah. I read 10 books this year. I went to the gym already. I've done it all. That's not the way transformation works. It's a continual process, right? I like to use what Pastor Keith taught on once when I was a little boy. It's something I've taken with me since then, where he talked about the butterfly and the caterpillar. The caterpillar dies and becomes the butterfly. A butterfly is not a caterpillar with wings. So there's this change and transformation process that the caterpillar submits to. It submits to this death. Like the caterpillar doesn't go in the cocoon and just come out better. It's not like some superhero montage inside the cocoon. The caterpillar dies to become something else. And so that's what happens in verse 1. It's the submission process to verse 2. It's a full change of your thinking. Because that's the part that really is the cocooning, is you being willing to fully release your thinking. How are you going to live differently? Where are you going to put your trust? What are you going to bet on in life? What are the things that you're going to pursue? That's really the cocooning process, which comes to where I want to spend the rest of our time. At the end of verse 2, he says, you'll be able to test and see. And this is the Greek word. It's a conjugation of the Greek word dokimo. The full Greek word here is like 6 syllables. We don't go past 4-syllable Greek words. But it's a conjugation. It's a conjugation of the Greek word dokimo, which in ancient culture, the dokimo was actually a person who tested for counterfeit money. You bring money to the dokimo and he'd say real money, fake money. Right. And it's the same. It's using that same word here, saying as you submit, as you grow, as you let God change your thinking, you'll be able to look at the things in your life and know the difference between what is real and what is fake as it relates to your purpose, as it relates to your destiny. And that ability to test and see God's will, that only comes from the full process. And this is the part where I try to help people along in their purpose as much as I can. Here's the decisions you need to make. Here's the thinking that you have to change. But there is a part that I cannot do for you, which the total submission, surrender, and transformation that gives you the ability to be the dokimo, to test and see for yourself. I can't do that for you. I can only show you the way. I can only tell you what's going to be required of you for you to fully see God's purpose in your life.
Right. So G, just if I could summarize, because we when we were prepping for this, you put the path of transformation, you touched on it in Romans 12, 1 and 2. It really is like a formula. It's submission, right? So like
that's in verse 1. Yep. Give up your way of doing things.
Right. And then it's the work, which is, and it says, and be transformed, right? Like it says, by the renewing of your mind. The renewing of your mind is the work, right? So like, what's this look like practically for us? You talked about, don't just listen to a podcast. Don't just do these things and think like, okay, check, I got there. It's ongoing. It's reading God's word. daily, right?
Well,
It's
and
spending
it's the putting yourself on the altar and letting God change your thinking. Those aren't one-time things. And I'm
right,
just I'm adding to what you're saying here that these would both be categorized as the work, because you don't say like, you know what, I already submitted to God, done that already. No, I
right,
submit to the Lord daily, and I'm trying to grow, transform, level up, elevate my thinking every single day. Because you know
right.
what I know? I know that God has a great plan. I know that He knows more than me. I know that wisdom is a resource that God will continually give to me. And so these are things that I have to pursue, not just like, oh, well, I did that already. It's not a one time action. It's not a one time gift. It's a constant process, right? Because in verse 2, it says, then do these things, then you will see God's will, which is perfect and pleasing. And I have seen God's will for my life, but I have never seen the entire picture.
Right.
What happens is God will show me pieces of the picture and I say, oh, this is God's will. And oftentimes when I have lived purposefully, I will look back and see like, oh, that was God's will.
Hmm.
And I lived for it. Now I can look back and see that it was true. And that's a part of what becoming that Dokimo comes from is how would you, if you just read a book about real money and fake money, you might not, like you would know some things, but you wouldn't know everything. But
Right.
when you have seen, when I show you this is counterfeit money, this is real money, and you put them in your hands and you begin to see the difference, and you've been doing this for a while, and people keep bringing you real money and fake money, and you're getting the differences, that's when really you're going to be able to test and see what's real and what's not real. And so the point that I'm making there is as you walk with God and you'll bet on what what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what God's saying in your life, and you'll bet on that, and then you'll stay with it long enough to see it out. That's when, and then you can look back and say, man, this was, I bet on this, and now I'm seeing God's plan in my life. That's what gives you an affirmation, a strengthening of the ability to see what God's future is.
Yeah, and that I mean, and that ongoing revelation really is the process. And people experience this in their life. And I think what absolutely kills people in this path of transformation is the desire to need to know or doubt that they come across. Because I've observed something that when people look at you or other people who have accomplished a high, like a highly regarded level of success, there's almost like this disqualification process that they put themselves through in their own mind. And so like you said, you have to put in the development work and then you'll see more. It gradually unfolds. And that really is a growth mindset. And so what I find is really useful is that you have to know how to stir up belief. And I want to remind people of this because we've done this before. Like God is calling you to do unknown things, right? That like 100% your purpose, you don't know it. None of us know our purpose laid out from start to finish, right? So you're going to be stepping into the unknown, which is what freezes so many people. And so like the way that you can build and encourage belief is you remind yourself you've done plenty of things already that you don't know. When you were talking about how, you're going to step out and you're going to actually do, and then that's when you're going to have more revelation. I was thinking about people who've learned how to drive. And that's pretty much, I would imagine, everybody listening to this podcast. I know maybe we have some young listeners, but by and large, everyone who listens to this podcast knows how to drive a car. And when you first started learning that, like, and you're sitting there in the theory and someone goes, hey, we're going to give you a car. And you start going, oh my gosh, like cars can kill people. There's wrecks. Like, I don't know how old everybody is, but I learned how to drive in California in the 90s. And like, you had to watch this thing called Faces of Death, where they literally showed you like crash scenes. I'm not even joking, man. Like no, it wasn't called Faces of Death. Sorry, that was a whole nother thing. But I can't remember what it was called. But you watch these, they show you crash scenes from like all these things. And I mean, it was graphic. You see people like what can happen if you're reckless with a car. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to go out and we're going to do the theoretical test. Or now we're going to go out and we're going to like take your theory and put it on the road. You're going to be with an instructor. And you're like, as a 15-year-old kid, when you can get your permit, you're like sitting there, going, okay. And you have a healthy respect for that car. And you pay a lot of attention. Okay, signal, mirror, over the shoulder, go. Like that's how we change lanes. And you like, I still remember this, man. Like whatever, 25 years on. And I think about that, like, and a lot of people just breeze past that. And like, oh yeah, driving's easy. Now people are texting, driving, listening to 5 shows, like talking to their kids, like thinking about what they're going to eat, ordering ahead for drive.
Filming
It's wild.
TikToks while they're driving.
Right, exactly. And like I don't recommend any of that. But the point being, what once seemed like something so difficult is now something you feel like you could almost do half asleep. And so you have to remind yourself, like, I would not say that, because, and then people are like, oh, well, driving's easy. Everybody does it. Okay. Well, there's lots of times in your life where you've done unknown things. You've had a baby, you got married, things that were legitimately, you'd seen other people do. And because of that, you had a belief that you could do it as well. But you need to stop and remember, look, how you dealt with uncertainty in there. You were scared that you weren't going to be able to be a good parent. You weren't sure if you're going to be able to make marriage work out. You were the new kid at school. You weren't sure you're going to be able to make any friends. And what happened is, as with anything, it was more difficult at the beginning, and then you start to learn, you start to change, you start to get better. And because of it, these things that once seemed like they were going to be hard now become like everyday normal things. So stir up belief. And I use common examples that most people could refer to, but I would encourage you, think about the things you've done that are unique to you. Have you, where did you win in business? Where did you win something big in any arena that you've done? And remind yourself of like how you went going into that. Like, because no doubt you've faced uncertainty before. If you played sports as a kid, there's that time whenever you didn't know how it was going to go. And man, you swung the bat, you connected, you squared a ball up. That was a great day. You've done this stuff before. So guess what? You can do it again. And then, like, 2, look at other people from a sober lens. There are no superhumans. I do jokes at the beginning of this podcast for Garrett's intro because I recognize that people like Garrett's a unique individual, but guess what? So are you. Now, you're not a Navy SEAL, but Garrett wasn't born with superhuman powers. And so you have to stir up belief to look at other people and say, if they can do it, so can I. Because Garrett bleeds like the rest of us. He's still not a great runner. No offense, G. But you pass buds. And like,
I'm a good
what I'm saying
sprinter, not a good
right,
runner.
Yeah, but like, oh yeah, sprinting really, that's what you guys did for 42 miles with boats on your head, right? Lots of sprinting. But you get my point. It's not about like that you have it all figured out. I mean, you can look at business is a great place to see this. Jeff Bezos started Amazon in the garage of a rented house. Bill Gates started it. We've all seen the picture of him as like a nerdy teenager starting Microsoft in his garage. There are people in garages right now starting businesses that you have no idea who they are. And you need to realize, like, look, there's other people out there that can build up your belief. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, they didn't graduate college. So like all these lists of qualifications that you think, because what I'm trying to do here very intentionally is tear down you have to be a certain level of special, or you have to have like this list of qualifications. And then you have to be the type of person that goes, you know what, that person did it. I can do it. I'm submitted to God. I'm committed to the work. And I know that I'm going to continue to level up. And then here's the thing, change your understanding of the path. Garrett gave you the path. I said it, it's submission, work, and then it's transformation and revelation. Fear and uncertainty are going to be there for you, right? And guess what? So is failure. You're going to fall short. Garrett's talked about this. We've fallen short on virtually every single goal we've ever set for ourselves. And we've always been like, okay, what did we learn? We had a level of success, but not the level of success we wanted. We'll go again.
We fell short, falling in the right direction.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I posted a quote this morning for our. If you don't follow us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram because I post these motivational quotes every day, and I love this one. This is Winston Churchill. Success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. Okay,
that's such a big one. Don't lose your enthusiasm, and it's failing up the mountain.
That's exactly right. So if you can understand that fear and certainty are there for everyone and be comfortable with not having to know, guess what? You can just take the next step. And that's how God works. You see it with the Israelites. You see it when Elijah was in the desert. He gave him just the food for that meal. And then he had a raven bring him the food again in the afternoon. And guess what? There was no extra to store away. It was like, here's what you need for this meal. God is speaking to us all the time about how he's going to lead us one step at a time. And so if you can understand this path of transformation, and if you can have the belief that you're going to become the type of person that could figure anything out, not because you know everything now, but because you have a living God who's written a plan for you and has great plans for your life and wouldn't ask you to do something that he's not equipped you to, like in Ephesians 2:10. He's equipped you for the good work that he's prepared in advance for you to do. If you have this type of attitude, now you're the person that can step out into the unknown and go out and transform, see the next mountain, get to the top of the mountain, see the next mountain, and you start to build belief. And you start to know that if God is for you, who can be against you? And if God is on your side, whom shall you fear? And you be the person that steps out, transforms, and you'll look back one day at where you've come from. And you'll go, oh God. It'll be a humbling experience because you'll know that you didn't do it not by might, not by power, but by his Spirit, says the Lord.
Thank you very much for listening, guys. Remember to share, like, subscribe. If you think that this would be something that someone would enjoy, please send it to them. We appreciate it all. If you want to get in touch, you can follow us on Instagram at The Impossible Life. You'll find us on there. You can also email at impossiblelifepodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, if you want to get in touch and find out about Garrett's personal or business coaching, that's the way to do it. Thank you again for listening. Go out there, think better, and live the impossible. See you again soon.